Season 11, Episode 9, Filling Cavities Artifact and Feature Analysis. In last night's episode, Filling Cavities at the Lot 5 excavation area, the archaeologists and Alex Lagina are working and discover a couple of artifacts. The first is what appears to be a small ring, but the team is unable to estimate a possible date. It is tagged and bagged and will be sent to Emma Culligan for further testing. The other artifact is what archaeologist Jamie Kuber described as a decorative piece of metal that was perhaps off a wooden door or chest. It is suggested that this may have to do with privateering, which archaeologist Fiona Steele mentions that there has been a lot of evidence to suggest privateering activity in this area. At the swamp, work commenced after it had been drained near the Stone Road feature, where Gary Drayton and Alex Lagina are metal detecting. Gary finds what appears to be a dowel, and it is suggested that this dowel was similar to ones found at the U-shaped structure over at Smith's Cove. It is suggested that perhaps there was a similar type of structure built in the swamp for loading and unloading of cargo. Back at the Lot 5 excavation area, the archaeologists have marked the boundary of the large rectangular feature that was shown on the magnometer readings. It measures 30 ftx 45 fartred approximately. They suggested that this structure was possibly taken down and hidden before the island was surveyed by Charles Morris in 1762. They said that it appears that the rocks found at the site were used to fill in the area and were not part of a wall. While they continued to work, they found a piece of engraved stone that was very peculiar and engraved with a line on both sides of the stone. They are unsure of what exactly it is and stated that they have never seen anything like it before, as it has rounded edges, evidence of being worked by man. Jack suggests it is part of the original money pit construction. The scene shifted back to the swamp area at the Stone Road feature, where Gary again is metal detecting with Alex Lagina. This time Gary has a detector hit and uncovers what appears to be a chain and a hook. Gary mentions he thinks the chain is hand-forged and old. This leads to speculation that the chain and hook were used to load and unload cargo from a ship, specifically treasure chests. The artifacts will be sent to Emma Culligan for further testing at the Interpretive Center, and it appears blacksmith Carmen Legger will be giving his opinion of them on next week's show. Oak Island researcher Scott Clark visited the War Room to present some of his research from his new book, Oak Island Odyssey. Scott begins by mentioning that his ancestor Andrew Belcher was perhaps one of the earliest Freemasons in North America, and he believes that he buried treasure on Oak Island. The narrator describes a Masonic generational conspiracy regarding Oak Island, and the Belcher family had secret knowledge of what was buried there. Scott then suggests that Charles Morris, the surveyor of Nova Scotia in the 1760s, may have received directives from Jonathan Belcher Jr., Andrew's grandson, to survey Oak Island into lots so that the buried treasure could be protected. Scott goes on to mention that Jonathan Belcher Jr. was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia and the Grand Master of Freemasonry in the province. Scott then produces a map of Mahone Bay that he said he found at the Nova Scotia archives. He mentions that it was made by Charles Morris in 1762, and he noticed some interesting features on it. First, he said that the first A in Mahone has a design of the Masonic compass. Scott goes on to suggest that this specific A has sometimes been associated with the fabled Holy Grail. Scott shows that this A points directly at Oak Island and suggests the Grail may be there, or may have been hidden there at one time. It is also stated that these A's are found in locations in Portugal and Italy with known Templar ties. Scott then states he found more of these A's at St. Margaret's Bay on the map, which is the neighboring bay to Mahone Bay. Scott then draws a circle connecting these A's and shows that his circle runs through Oak Island. Scott believes this indicates a correlation with something like the Holy Grail being hidden on Oak Island by Freemasons. Historical analysis. Charles Morris was Surveyor General for the province of Nova Scotia from 1749 to 1781. He was instrumental in the founding of Halifax and Lunenburg and the arrival of the New England planters to populate Nova Scotia. Morris was a very busy man, mapping, surveying the entire province, and helping to launch many settlements for the incoming settlers. In 1761, Lieutenant Governor Jonathan Belcher sent the Board of Trade, who was in control of all of Britain's colonial plans, some of Morris's maps. In early 1762, Belcher sent Morris's report of new settlements and several towns. Morris's assessments described the natural resources of the townships and how they were to be used in the future. Later in 1762, the Shoreham Land Grant, which included Oak Island, was approved by Morris, and the island was divided into 32 4-acre lots. In 1763, Morris was forced to tell the New England planters at Morilleville that their lands were reserved for the military. Morilleville was located on the St. John River in present-day New Brunswick, then part of Nova Scotia. Morris supported the New Englander planters staying. He wrote to Joshua Morga, the provincial agent of Nova Scotia in London, asking him to use his influence with the Board of Trade to allow them to stay, and was successful. This was the type of influence that Morga wielded in Nova Scotia, and he used his power to undermine anyone that stood in his way. This included Jonathan Belcher. Belcher was the Grand Master of Freemasonry in Nova Scotia at the time, but Morga, who was also a Freemason, was the person who decided what happened in the province. Belcher would become closely aligned with Morga as the years went on, and effectively was under Morga's control. The question becomes, was Morga behind Oak Island being divided into lots to protect his smuggling privateering operation from being discovered, and used his fellow Freemasons Belcher and Morris to do so? Scott Clark's discovery of the Masonic A's on the 1762 map is very interesting. The compendium checked out various maps completed by Morris and concur that there are no other maps with these types of A's that were located. Was it just a stylized design Morris used because he was a Freemason, or is there something more going on here? It was mentioned in the episode that there may have been a Masonic general conspiracy over time regarding Oak Island. On the surface, this seems hard to believe, but the compendium thinks that there may be substance to this idea. In fact, our research indicates that the involvement of Freemasons with the island goes back very far and continues to this day. The compendium will be completing a future investigation into this subject later in 2024. Please visit http://www.theoakislandcompendium.com for the entire article and all of our other content regarding the Oak Island mystery. Good day from the compendium. Daniel and Charlotte,